Hi, I'm Manushi Majumdar, a data science product engineer on the ArcGIS Hub team. And today I'll talk about how you can automate engagement and several of your ArcGIS Hub workflows using ArcGIS Hub's Python library. We'll start by looking at a quick introduction to this library and then see a list of all the functionalities supported. I will then do a live demo to show how the ArcGIS Hub library facilitates content creation, sharing, and engagement in ArcGIS Hub. And then we'll discuss the plans we have for the future of this library, and I'll leave you with a few resources to work with this library after. Simply put, hub.py or the ArcGIS Hub Python library is a Python interface to ArcGIS Hub. It can be thought of as a library, a Python package that allows us to perform most of the UI functionalities and automate them using simple Python scripts. The functionality and capability supported so far is for initiatives, events, sites, and pages. This library is built over the ArcGIS API for Python. So you need the ArcGIS API for Python installed on your machine in order to successfully install and run hub.py or the ArcGIS Hub library. For those of us not familiar, the ArcGIS API for Python is a platform-wide Python API that allows automating several of your WebGIS workflows. It also allows you to interact with different item types and perform a lot of data science and analysis workflows. And for those of us who are familiar with the ArcGIS API for Python, we'll notice that the design as well as usage of hub.py is similar to that of the Python API. We have support in hub.py for your Hub premium objects such as initiatives, events, sites, and pages, as well as for the sites and pages in Hub Basic and Enterprise sites for versions 10.8 and above. Similar to the ArcGIS API for Python, the design of hub.py is object-oriented as well. And another similarity I'd like to point out is the intended environment to use our library, which is ArcGIS Hub, is the Jupyter notebooks. While you most certainly can use it in standalone scripts or web frameworks even for that matter, it is built for a seamless experience in Jupyter notebooks similar to the ArcGIS API for Python. Let's take a quick look at this library to understand a few things. So this is the GitHub repository or location for the ArcGIS Hub Python API. As we see, installing and upgrading this package is extremely easy. All you need to do is launch an instance of terminal or command prompt on your local machine and execute this one command, this pip install command. You can then verify if the version has been successfully upgraded by importing the package and checking for the version. That's how you'll know if your package is successfully installed or upgraded. Similar to the web interface, the web browser version of ArcGIS Hub, in order to get started, in order to work with the initiatives, events, and other content in your organization, you need to first sign in. So in order to get started with working with the Python library version of Hub as well, you first import Hub and then create an instance, an object of Hub by signing in with your ArcGIS Hub organization URL, username, and password. I know it sounds a little confusing to create a Hub instance even when you sign in as an enterprise user, but stick with me. Once you log in with your enterprise deployment URL and login credentials, the experience is just the same to work with the enterprise sites. And once you've logged in, you can then use this particular Hub instance to work with all your Hub content. I'd also like to point out this URL right here for our documentation. Here you can take a look at the design, the architecture design for hub.py, as well as I have linked out resources to check out the API reference for hub as well as sites to understand in detail how to use each of these particular modules, submodules, and the various methods and properties for each class that have been supported. The functionality supported in ArcGIS Hub is massive. For each initiative, event, sites, as well as pages, you can fetch a single instance based on its unique ID or unique item ID. You can search across an entire collection of these objects and also filter based on particular names, based on words in the name, in the title, as well as owner that has created that particular object, all tags as well that are associated with the particular item. You can add or create a new instance of an initiative, event, site, or page, as well as update or delete an existing instance. Another key functionality I'd like to point out, a powerful one, is site layout editing. What makes this functionality particularly powerful is the ability to apply a change uniformly across a number of your sites and pages. So in case you want to apply a mass update, a mass change to all the content, all the sites and pages in your hub, you don't need to manually go through that process of changing it for each particular site or page. You can automate the process easily using hub.py. A few use cases which are only specific to hub.py are the cloning of initiatives and sites. For those of us who've used the UI, the web interface of Hub to clone initiatives and sites, we've seen how easy and how straightforward the process is to clone an initiative or site within our Hub, within our same organization. But using hub.py or the ArcGIS Hub Python library, you can not only clone an initiative or site from one organization or to another, irrespective of the fact if the target organization is a Hub Basic or Hub Premium organization. The library intelligently understands if it needs to create a site item alone or a site and initiative item alone based on the features of your target Hub organization. Using our Python library, you can also successfully clone sites from an ArcGIS Online, Hub Basic or Premium organization to an ArcGIS Enterprise portal deployment, and vice versa. You can clone sites from an Enterprise portal deployment over to Online, that is an ArcGIS Hub instance. Let's now take a look at a few examples and user guides that have these examples implemented. This right here is the directory within our repository that has all of these and many more examples implemented as user guides. We have a particular example here for accessing events and then plotting them on a map, as well as accessing initiatives and sites, which involves searching for sites and initiatives across a collection of those in your hub and then filtering them based on a few categories, a few parameters such as title, owner, etc. You can also fetch a unique individual instance of an initiative or site based on its unique item ID. Similarly, you can add, update, and delete sites, events, and initiatives. For cloning, we have a lot of examples supported here. You can clone an initiative in another organization, irrespective of the fact if it's a Hub Basic or Premium organization. You can also clone an initiative in the same organization. You can clone sites from ArcGIS Hub to Enterprise and vice versa, as well as clone sites within the same organization. While the process to clone an initiative and site within the same organization is pretty much identical, I've provided a separate example in the interest of the Hub Basic and Enterprise users. We also have examples that show you how you can search and filter content from your site. You can search for content across your site based on a search query. It can return content of all item types, and similarly you can even filter it based on a particular item type as well as a particular search query. You can then also edit the layout of your site, that is add, update, delete rows, cards and sections to your site, and ensure that those particular changes are visible on the site. And then you can also work with pages of a site. So you can not only add, update, delete pages, but also link and unlink existing pages from a site, as well as clone them. Let's take a look at a live example, a live demo for working with the ArcGIS Hub Python library. We'll be using ArcGIS notebooks in order to work through this demo. As you'll see, installing ArcGIS Hub in a particular ArcGIS notebook instance is as straightforward as we saw right here. So installing the library involves executing this one particular install command, a pip install command, and as we'll see here, the same command works just fine in an ArcGIS notebook as well. So normally, in order to work with several ArcGIS items, several ArcGIS WebGIS workflows, we import and work with the ArcGIS API for Python. We won't be requiring it in this particular demo to see how to work with ArcGIS Hub's objects and ArcGIS Hub's items. To get started, let's first install the particular library. As we see, it has successfully installed ArcGIS Hub, and we may need to restart the kernel in order to use it. Let's now try importing Hub to see if it imports it successfully. So since Hub has successfully been imported, as I previously mentioned, you first need to sign into your Hub. You first need to log in order to access the content in your Hub and create new content. We start by signing in. Now that I've successfully signed in and I've created a My Hub instance to work off of, we can start by searching for initiatives. In order to search for initiatives, you call the initiatives property of your Hub object and call the search method on it by passing in the particular filter query you'd like to apply. In this case, I'd like to search for initiatives which have community in the title. Let's see what we find. So as we see, it has returned the first top 10 initiatives by default that have community in the title. So we have increased community pride, we have community test, racial equity, community outreach. So as we see, a bunch of different initiatives created by a lot of different people have been returned. In order to filter based on a particular owner, you can also add that in this query. I'll filter initiatives that have community in the title and that have been created by me. And there we see it has filtered it down to just one particular initiative. Let's now try creating a particular initiative. So in order to create an initiative, you call the add method on the initiatives collection, initiatives property of your Hub, and you provide a title. It's mandatory to provide a title when you're creating an initiative, similar to creating an initiative in the web interface. And let's call this initiative for Dev Summit 2021. As we see, the process of creating an initiative involves creating the necessary teams, the site that goes with the initiative, and as well as the initiative item. Now that this has been created, let's verify it. There, we see that the initiative for Dev Summit item has been created successfully, and when we view the application, there we can see the site for this particular initiative. Let's try fetching the site for this initiative. So as we know, an initiative comes with a site item. In order to access the site ID, the site item ID, all you do is you call the site ID property of the particular initiative object, and to fetch a particular site, similar to fetching a particular initiative or page, what you do is you call the get method on the site's property of my hub. So here, instead of passing an item ID, what we are doing is we are passing in the site ID property of this initiative that we just created. Let's see what we get. So there, you get the particular site for this particular initiative. Let's try linking a page to this site. Now, in order to link a page to a site, you first need to fetch that page object. As we've seen, to fetch any particular object, you first need to call the get method on that particular collections object. So in this case, it would be a get method to the pages object, since we're trying to fetch a page, and we pass the item ID of that particular page. So we get a particular page that I had created a while ago. Let's try linking this particular page to S1, that is our site for this particular initiative. To do that, we pass this particular page object that we've just fetched, that is the new page object, and we pass in a slug that will be used to reference this page in the site. So if this page was called page space, let's call it linked page space and see what we get. Also, I'd like to make a note here that when you link a page to an existing site, you'll have to call the search method again on the pages object to make sure that it searches and it filters all the new pages that have been linked to the site. So as we see, this page is the only page that has been linked and added to this site. Let's try editing the layout for this site. Now, if we observe this particular site, as we see, it has several sections, rows, and cards. We see a few, this is a map card as we see. We also see a few other stat cards right here. In the interest of keeping this demo simple, let's try updating a particular card. So we'll try updating this particular card. We'll try changing the color for this card. Now, one thing that I'd like to clarify here about the concept of site layout editing is each site comes with a layout. A layout has sections, a section has rows, and a row has cards. In order to understand this concept clearly and visualize it better, I recommend checking out the site layout editing user guide in the examples I just showed. That clearly explains how the hierarchy works in a visual manner. But for now, let's work with the concept that a site has a layout, and a layout then has all these elements to work with. So to get started, we fetch the layout for that site. So for the site object, we fetch the layout. Having done that, we know we are working with this first section. We want to change the color for this card right here that reads create your own initiative by combining existing applications. So in order to change the color for that particular row, that particular section, we first try to fetch it. The color for that will be stored in the style.background.color property. So let's see what the existing value is. So I believe this is the value for this blue color that we see right here. Now let's try to change that. Changing the value is as easy as overwriting that variable with another value. It's basic Python. And having changed it, we now print to verify if the new value has been overwritten. We see it has taken in this new value. Now, in order to ensure that this change is written to the site object, to ensure that this change is saved, we need to call the update layout method on the site object and pass in the new layout. So as we see, the layout has been changed down to the color property, but the layout variable here has been changed. So we need to send in that new updated layout to the update layout method. Let's do that and see what happens. It says true, so we can assume that the change has taken place. And voila! Here, the color, the background color of that section has changed to a deep maroon. So updating the layout of a site can be very easy. Once you know how to change maybe a color or the text on a particular card, on a particular section, it's very easy to access all the sites, to fetch all your sites this way. To search for your initiatives, you can search for all the sites in your hub and then apply this change uniformly across all of them in a loop. So that helps automate and leverage the power of working with all the content in your hub. Let's now take a look at how you can create an event. As hub users, we know that events are a powerful way to connect with your community and to reach out to them and to increase engagement. Creating an event in hub.py is also really straightforward. You just need to know what the mandatory fields are that need to be provided as properties in order to create an event. So similar to creating an event in the UI, let's actually see an example. So similar to creating an event in the UI, where in order to create a new event, you need to provide a few certain mandatory fields such as title, description, the initiative that this event would be related to, as well as the organizers, the location, the time. The same fields are mandatory, of course, even while creating an initiative. Even while creating an event using hub.py. You provide the title, the description, the initiative ID. Here we want to create this event for the same initiative we've just created, that is Initiative for Dev Summit 2021. We do that by calling the item ID property on the particular initiative object. We add a venue, an address, a particular status, that is whether it's publicly accessible, publicly viewable or not. A start date and end date, these are provided in Unix time, and then whether if it's an all-day event or not. So since it's not, we give 0 as opposed to 1 as its value, and a location in terms of a geometry. Once you provide the mandatory fields in a dictionary here, this dictionary can be passed in as the only sole parameter needed to the add method of the events property on your hub. So having done that, we see that a new event has successfully been created, which is automating engagement with ArcGIS Hub. Now let's try to view all the events of a hub on a map. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is a way of actually plotting all your active upcoming initiatives on a map view object. So if we zoom in here a little, we can see a few events right here close to Washington, DC. And there we see a few active upcoming events that have been demonstrated here, that have been visualized here. And we see this is a particular event for a department meeting to get training. So clicking on each event also gives you information about these events. So that's cool, right? ArcGIS Hub's Python library also has a visual component to it. Let's now see how you can clone a particular initiative or site in the same hub organization. So since I've signed in here as a particular hub premium user, what I'm going to do is call the clone method on the initiatives property of my hub object, and then pass in the initiative object I'd like to clone. So let's clone the same initiative that we recently created. Based on our particular Hub's features, that is a Hub premium and its features, we should get an initiative as well as site item for this particular clone. And executing it, there we got a particular Hub initiative for this. I'd also like to make a note here that since we did not provide a title for this initiative, the cloned initiative was created with an automated title. So while it's nice to provide a title of your choice, it's not mandatory while cloning initiatives using hub.py. And there, this initiative was successfully cloned, since we did notice the particular site layout change that we applied get carried forward even here. Let's now see how you can clone a site in another Hub Basic or Enterprise organization. So the same process that applies to cloning an initiative from a Hub Premium to a Hub Basic or applies also for cloning it to an enterprise portal deployment. To start off, we first sign in to this new organization that we'd like to clone our particular initiative into. In this case, it's a Hub Basic organization. Cloning this initiative again is as easy as calling the clone method on the initiatives property of the target organization, the organization we're trying to clone content into. And here you pass in the initiative that you'd like to clone, the initiative object, a reference to the new org, a reference to the origin org, the origin hub that contains this particular initiative, as well as, let's try it with a title this time. As we rightly observe, this time, since we've cloned our initiative into a Hub Basic organization, a Hub site application was returned as opposed to a Hub initiative. So as I previously mentioned, the library intelligently knows what item to return, what items to work with as per the features of your Hub. And it has successfully cloned this initiative for us, along with the site update, the layout update that we applied a few steps ago. Isn't it cool to work with ArcGIS Hub's Python library? As we see, there are so many use cases supported, use cases available in the UI as well as those that are not. So for future iterations, for future development plans of hub.py for the Python library of ArcGIS Hub, we plan to allow support for templates, both initiative and solution. That is how you can activate an initiative template or solution template and create your own copy of it. We also plan to work with teams and allow for supporting teams to start with, as well as capability to message event attendees and team members. Moving forward, we'd also like to provide greater support for community member management as well as community directories. And to conclude, I'd like to leave you with a few resources. Here's a URL to the library. You can, as I first showed, you can install and upgrade hub.py very easily, and the pip install command is provided right here in the library's readme. I've also provided the URL here for the documentation from where you can access hub and sites API reference documents, as well as take a good look at hub's architecture diagram. I've also provided the URL for the user guides, the examples, the directory that I showed earlier that has all the examples even beyond the ones that we just saw in the live demo. And with that, thank you so much for taking time today and attending our session. I hope this session was valuable and useful for you. We'd love to connect with you on GeoNet with your questions, concerns, feedback on using our ArcGIS Hub Python library. I also believe that this session comes with a survey link. Please provide your feedback. We'd really appreciate to see your feedback, your thoughts on this session. We do take your feedback and suggestion very seriously, and we'd love to make this session and or future iterations of this session more applicable and relevant for you. Thank you for attending this session. I hope you have a great rest of your day and rest of your Dev Summit. Thank you.